Hello. So I'm just going to go and record this video because a lot of people start asking questions around gear. There is a lot of advice that we can give you, and what I hope to do with this video is just sort of give you a breakdown of all the different pieces, general advice, some known brands to us, and just hopefully point you in the right direction to make good purchasing decisions. Obviously, there is a lot of gear. It can be quite expensive if you're new to it and you wanted to get all brand new stuff. There is obviously some secondhand um, marketplaces like Roller Derby Recyclables, which is great on Facebook. But this will be a guide if you're going completely brand new, but you can also use this as a kind of guide for stuff that's secondhand as well. Bear in mind, these are opinions and experience that I've gained from the last 12 years of being involved with roller derby. So some of the advice may be very specific to roller derby, but I'll try and mention that as we go. So the first off is obviously if you're new to this world, is where'd you go? So these are some of the websites that we generally have had good experiences with. They generally stock a lot of the good things that we want. So Skate Britain, Double Fret Skates, Hive, Bridgend, Cycle Centre, and Skate Hut. Now, Skate Britain is based in Oswestry, so it's probably the closest shop you can actually go to try stuff on. It may be worth calling ahead or emailing ahead if there's anything specific you're wanting to look at because they may not have it in store. It might be sort of, they get the stock into order. Double Fret Skates do sort of fitting deposits where some of the skaters have been able to pay like £100 deposit and they'll ship off some different gear to you for fitting purposes. And then the £100 deposit comes off your order if you do order something, or they'll just return it once you've returned all of the gear to them. Hive, they are online only. Bridge and Cycle Centre, I'm not too sure if they have a brick and mortar, but we've had very good experiences with them over the years. And Skate Hut, again, it's a very trustworthy sort of website that you can go to. So these are some of the ones that we recommend. We're not saying that these are the only ones to use. Just your mileage may vary if you go to anything outside of these. Obviously, you do have the likes of Amazon as well. Okay, with that over, let's go to our first slide. If it'll let me go. Yep. Okay, so first bit of equipment we're going to go through is knee pads. Now, knee pads, the general recommendation is to go for the kinds that you can see here. So you should be able to see my cursor. So the top line here are your more budget level ones. So these ones are around sort of 20 to 30 pounds. But the main thing that we say to look out for is the amount of padding that's on them. And if there was anything I would highly advise investing in well right up front is your knee pads. They're going to take a lot of the brunt while you're learning to skate. They are obviously one of the ways that we've taught you how to fall is to go onto your knees, so they get a battering. And generally speaking, if you invest a little bit more in some of the more higher brand ones, they do generally last a lot longer. Not saying that these the more budget friendly ones won't last. It's just in our experience, the padding's a little bit better, the materials used are a little bit better, so you're probably going to get a little bit longer out of them. But for our course, we'd recommend this style of knee pad. So very big plates on the front, big Velcro bits on the top to keep them upright, and generally speaking, you want a little bit of padding underneath the actual sort of knee pad itself. There is also different kinds based on what you're wanting to do as well. So you can see a lot of these have these rivets that are holding the pad in place. There are other types like these ones and these ones that actually have Velcro that stick on the actual pad, so you can take them off so you can wash the pad. Which, to be honest, if you're starting to experience the smell that comes off the roller skating gear, you'll know why you want to do that. So these are some of the brands that we recommend. So, like I say, this top line are your more budget friendly ones to begin with. You can get these for between sort of £20 to £30. The ones that we've got here, 187, 888, S1, TSG, they are a lot higher priced ones. So you're talking sort of 55 up to some £80 in some cases. But they're like we say, they're made of a lot better materials, and the padding is a lot more um, significant. Is the best way to put it. And we definitely avoid any that look like these. Generally speaking, these kind of pads, they're more designed to prevent like if you fell over at high speed, and to prevent sort of skin breakage. They're not really designed for a lot of impact. They're designed for literally accidents, not for using them on purpose. So generally I'd avoid using these, especially if you wanted to go into roller derby. Other things to note, proper ways to wear them. Now, when you're wearing them, you should be able to strap them up. They should be comfortable. They shouldn't be too tight. Once you've got them at a comfortable sort of tightness, you want to make sure that they're not able to very easily roll up and down your leg. Now, some of the more expensive ones, you may even find they're a little bit uncomfortable to be straight-legged in when you first get them. This is a good thing as long as they're comfortable when you're bending your knees. That's what you want for the most part. In fact, sometimes these can help encourage that really good behaviour that we're trying to get you to do in the new skater sessions. Always bending your knees, but as a rule, you don't want them to be able to slide around on your leg. They need to stay in place. So if you get flung or you fall over at speed, they're going to be able to stay on your knee and keep you protected. Okay, moving on. So the next bit we usually recommend investing in is a good helmet. Now, you may have experienced falls already. They do happen, and especially if you fall backwards, it's very, very common for you to hit your head as well. Now, the style of helmet that you can see here is pretty much what we sort of recommend. These shapes are generally good for multiple impact, and they're also good for multi-directional impact. So although you may mostly experience maybe going backwards where you hit your head, there's obviously different ways that you can hit your head if you do fall over. And having a really good helmet is very much recommended, because even with a good helmet, you can still get concussion. But the better quality helmet you've got, the less risk you are putting yourself in as well. Just in case. Some key notes to note about these is just take a look at the padding inside them. You will notice that there's a little like sort of a hard polystyrene foam as well. Now, when you're looking at helmets, especially if you're looking for like secondhand ones, be very, very wary and make sure that that polystyrene foam is secure and doesn't slide around. If you've got a helmet where that inner polystyrene slides around, that's not usable. That's probably had too many impacts and is no longer usable, in my opinion. It's just not safe to use. Now, in terms of buying, you can get these really nice ones from Skate Hut, which are self-branded. They're around £20. They're not too much. Our usual recommendation is the S1 helmets. You'll see most people have these in roller derby. They're just a very trustworthy brand. You can get them for around £40, and they also have like a bazillion different color options. So you can have different colors, different patterns. You can get glitter ones, leopard print ones, all sorts. But that's not to rule out all the other brands as well. There are ProTech 187 ones you can get as well, which are really good as well. It's just generally most people stick to S1 because of the color options for the most part. You can also get helmets that have visors. Now, based on what we've been doing so far, it might seem a little bit silly to have a visor, but when you start getting involved with roller derby, especially if you're shorter, hits to the face can and often do happen. They are obviously accidents, but they do happen, and these visors just help sort of make sure your nose and your eyes don't get crushed. To be honest, not everybody wears these. Again, usually you'll see a lot of shorter skaters will wear them. But that is another option as well. And usually, if you see me in my purple helmet, that helmet's a visor helmet, and you can take the visor off. That's what these big bolts on the side are for. Typical helmets to try and avoid. So cycling helmets. Again, much like what we said with the knee pads, these are not designed for multiple impacts and multiple direction impacts. These are designed, you're going on a bike and you're going one direction and you're going very fast, and they're there just to help alleviate that kind of impact. The same with this. This is I think a climbing helmet. Now, it's not to say that these aren't going to save your noggin. It's just that they're not necessarily designed for the kind of impact and kind of activity that you're doing. They're better designed for other kinds of activities. So we would just advise to steer away from these kind of helmets. And just an honourable mention there, don't get ones that have peaks. Generally speaking, especially if you're wanting to get involved with us with roller derby, because peaks are generally just sort of frowned upon. If there is a clash, a peak can cause injury, essentially to other skaters. So best to avoid that one as well. So proper ways to wear them. The main thing I would say with helmets is that it needs to be snug on your helmet, not too tight that it would cause you a headache, but it needs to be tight so you can put it on without the straps on and dangle your head upside down and shake it a little bit, not too viciously, shake it a little bit to make sure the helmet doesn't come loose. If it stays nice and snug and in place, then you're off to the races. It should also be well on your head. You should, in fact, I'm going to put my helmet on and show you. Okay, so as you can see, what it needs to do is it needs to be able to stay snug in place when you shake it like that. It needs to not be up here and not be too down here. You need to have it on fully. And with the straps, you need to be able to strap them together. You want a little bit of leeway under here. You don't want it too tight, so it'll choke you. And you've got these adjustments here. These should be just underneath your earlobe, essentially. That's where you usually want them to be. If they're a little bit too low, adjust them up, essentially. Okay, carrying on. Let's go there. Okay, so elbow pads. Now, elbow pads, everyone's mileage varies on these, to be honest. Out of all of the pads, these are probably the least important to get too precious about. That's why I haven't got too much content on here. There is different types. The ones on the far left here, they're ones that you'll probably see most of them are shaped like. You've got ones that got a bit more padding and they've got a much smaller sort of hard padding. And then you've got ones that have got a lot more significant sort of straps to hold them on as well. These ones, I would just go based on your comfort levels. What looks comfortable, what your budget can afford. To be honest, I know some people that have had the same elbow pads since they started. They don't get a lot of wear out of them, in all fairness, and as long as you look after them, you'll be sound. Don't worry. Don't read too much into it. It's a lot more about personal preference and how comfortable they feel. Again, much like knee pads, just make sure that when you strap them up, they don't slip on your arm. Moving on. Okay, now wrist guards. Little bit of a similar story as with elbow pads. However, you will get quite a lot of use out of these. People do generally replace their wrist guards quite often over the years. So all I'm going to really do, again, it's a lot of personal preference, but I'll go through the different kinds that you can sort of get. So you just got to set a sort of general idea. So the ones on the top here from Atom, there is other brands that do very similar ones. They are literally just a hard casing on the front, and the rest of it's just sort of like a soft padded glove that just goes around. The advantage to these ones is they don't come too far down the wrist, so you can move your wrist around quite freely, and it's not really restrictive at all either, and they're quite lightweight. These ones here, these have just a splint on the front. Now the splint is sort of shaped with a little bow. You might be able to see that in some of the other ones here. The wrist has got like a little bit of a bow. Now what these are designed for is for heavy impact on your wrist. So when you fall down and you use your hand to sort of place it down, if you get into the knack of sort of using the base of your wrist to sort of land on, by having this sort of bow shaped, it helps absorb a hell of a lot of the impact, so you don't really feel it. But these ones in particular, they open up on the back, so they're quite easy to put on, and you've got 3 straps there to sort of put the wrist guard on without needing to slide your hand into it. It sort of it opens completely up, so you can just completely close it. You don't need to slide into that. This one is a little bit different. This one you do need to slide your hand into, and the reason for that is it's got the little bow-shaped thing on the front, as I described with this one, but it's also got a splint on the back. Now, what that does is when you have your hand and wrist in there, these will come further down your wrist as well. What that's going to do is it's going to provide a structure for your wrist. So if you do fall onto it and there is a high lot of pressure, because you've got that extra support at the back, what it does is it puts the support away from your wrist and a little bit further down on your arm, so it's more towards your forearm, just putting it in a much stronger place rather than taking all of the brunt to your much more delicate wrist joint. These ones are very similar. They have a back splint as well, but the back splint is moldable. It's like metal, so you can sort of bend it into different shapes. So if it's a little bit uncomfortable, you can kind of bend it into such a shape that feels a little bit more comfortable. And they have a very good strap on them as well to get in there quite tight. These ones are very, very, very similar to these. Obviously, same brand, etc. The main advantage to these ones is that they are an entire glove, so they actually cover a lot of your hand as well. So on the back and on the front, because they're a full fingerless glove. Now, some people do like the protective properties of this, although I will warn, as someone who had them previously, they get extremely stinky. Yeah, they're like fake leather gloves that you're wearing playing a sport. They get a bit stinky. They offer really good protection, but yeah, they definitely get very stinky. And then these ones are very similar to what we were talking about with the back splints, except they're a little bit more open. Very similar to these Atom ones, except they've got the back splint as well. But these are sort of bare minimum as well, and they don't cover your wrist too much. They're quite high up on the wrist compared to some of these other ones. Again, these are mileage will vary. Some people will insist on having much more support and having these splints in there because they want that extra protection. Some people prefer to have full wrist movement, and this is definitely a choice of your own. If you're getting used to skating, we would usually recommend having the ones with the full splints. So when you're a bit more experienced, you can move away from those and go towards the ones that give you a bit more wrist movement. But that's entirely your choice. The prices vary on these. So you can get these Atom ones are usually quite cheap. They're usually around £15. Hired hands go up to about 35, I believe. So the range of prices you're looking at here aren't too much. In terms of proper ways to wear them, you can't really get these wrong. Just don't wear them on the wrong hand. You should be all right. Next, we've got the mouth guards. I have mentioned to a number of you already in the session that I took that in the later half of the course there is some contact involved, and we do require mouth guards for that. What I would say is you're just getting started and just getting a feel for things. Just buy a cheap one. So I've put this Everlast one. I think it was £4 on Sports Direct. Um, it'll do. It's fine. We just need you to protect your teeth, because you know there is going to be a level of contact involved. It's not punching or anything like that. It's just for that extra bit of security because you're doing contact. If you do eventually join us in doing roller derby and all that kind of thing, pretty much everyone you speak to in the community will recommend getting these Sisu mouth guards. The main reason being is they're a lot thinner. They mold. You have to mold them to your teeth, but they're a lot thinner, so you can actually talk with the mouth guard in, and you can drink a lot easier with the mouth guard in. Whereas something like this are very chunky and very cumbersome. You can't really talk in them properly. You have to take them out if you want to speak, and drinking's a lot more difficult. Proper ways of wearing them, yeah, just put them on your teeth. Make sure they're not too tight on your teeth, especially if you're doing the molded ones like these. It's very important that you, when you're molding it, don't mold it too tight to your teeth, because you need to be able to take it off quite easily. And I know from experience, I've sometimes molded them a little bit too tight, and it's actually cut my gums and things. So just it should be fine as long as you don't do it too tight. Next, we're going into skates. Now, this first page is just talking about complete skate setups. Now, what you can see on screen are some of the sort of, we say entry level, but they are still quite expensive. So, I do want to acknowledge that. But these are what a lot of us have started on, especially these two here. A lot of people in roller derby started with these particular skates. The good thing about all of these packages is they come with very suitable wheels, very suitable bearings. Toe stops are adjustable, so you can adjust the height on them. And the wheels are relatively okay. The boots are good. The ankles are at appropriate levels. These are the kind of shapes of skates that we recommend for roller derby. But generally skating, this is what we also recommend for the things that we'd cover. Now, it's not to say that the other kinds of skates that people have are incorrect. If you're just wanting to roller skate, it's just for our purposes. This is what we sort of recommend. What you will see a lot of in other kinds of skates is much higher ankles. Now, with the flexible ankles, that's generally okay. But if they're hard ankles, if they're quite fixed, like inline skates or ice skates, they can make some of the maneuvers and some of the skills that we do a little bit more difficult, because you don't have as much ankle movement. If you've experienced plow stops, you'll have experienced one of the kind of movements that you need a bit of ankle movement. So if you've got some higher ankle ones, you might be finding that those are a little bit difficult to do. Other things to note is the size of the heel. Generally speaking, in roller derby, you have a much lower ankle. You don't have that too high. In disco skating and sort of artistic skating, they have a much higher ankle. That helps them keep their weight forward a lot more. Enables them to go into toe stops, helps them spin. That's not what roller derby generally wants to do. You want to have a much more centered balance, because we use all of our edges in different ways for stops and changing direction and all that kind of thing. But what you're looking at on screen, these top three, they're sort of between the 100 to 150 mark. So they are a bump up from beginner skates. You can get some beginner skates, but generally speaking, if you're wanting to sort of dive into this properly, these are the sort of where we'd recommend you starting, at least, because you've got most of the things you're going to need from this, and then you can upgrade parts as you go. the Shore Grip Rebel Avengers. They are a step up from these, usually around 200 to 220, depending on where you shop. But these the advantage to this is they just have better quality plates and wheels and stuff. But we'll get through all of the different parts of it. But this is just generally a slightly above entry level skate to get involved in. Okay. So now we're going to go through all of the different parts of skates. Now these can all be, I'm going to be talking about these as if you were buying them individually, but if you're seeing second-hand ones, the advice may still also be useful, so you know what you're looking at. But some of the brands that you want to look at around the actual boots. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are the ones you're going to see probably the most often outside of the complete packages. Like Shore Grip is Linguino, Bont, Rydell, and Antic. The Bont and the Linguino, these generally speaking they're around the same price as the full packages we were just looking at. So they're around sort of 100 to 150 for just the boot, and then you'd have to buy all of the parts on front. But if you're seeing these on second-hand pages, you know they are just a better quality boot. They're using a better quality leather, and then these are like your top end ones. If you're seeing these around generally, they are sort of the last step. So if you're really invested and you want to get some very decent ones that are going to last you years, this is sort of where you're starting to look at. But the kind of prices we're talking about here are like 300 for the Solaris. These ones are about 300 to 350. Don't be put off about buying skates because of the ludicrous prices that us insane people are paying for the top end ones. But these are like like everything else. You want really decent, you got to pay decent money. But it's not to say some cheaper ones aren't good. In terms of styles and types, so there are a lot of low profile ones, which are what the Solaris are, these Bont hybrids and Linguinos are. You can get different ones with the Velcro straps. Some don't have those. The Solaris, for instance, they also feature an ankle tightening mechanism because the ankle for these are really low profile. I think ankle socks. So they've got this little tightening mechanism on the laces to help lock in your ankle. A lot of people do like this style of boot because it gives you a lot of movement. They feel quite light on your feet. The other alternative type, which you'll probably see myself wearing as well, is the Antic type, which they just have a higher ankle. I prefer this because it just feels more snugly on my foot, and I also like being able to tighten it in different ways as well. And not to mention, I pretty much wear high tops all the time, so they just feel very natural on my feet compared to the more low profile ones. The other things to note when you're looking around is what the base is made out of. Now, vast majority of sort of the entry level to mid range, generally speaking, have a lot of the same materials they use for the soles of them. But when you get more expensive, like the Rydell Solaris, they have carbon fiber plates on the bottom, which means they're very, very rigid on the bottom, so not quite as flexible. There is pros and cons to this. They can feel quite hard against your feet, but they provide you with a much more stable platform to use your edges. So a lot of people that are quite used to very fast movements and things find you get a lot more control because the base of the foot is so rigid. And then there's the full grain leather ones as well, which they just provide a lot of flex. They're a lot more flexible, so they can feel a little bit more comfortable. Other than that, the other things to consider is, which might sound really silly, is how fat your feet are. Generally speaking, Rydell, Bont, and Linguino are really good for sort of skinnier feet, whereas Antic and Shore Grip are really good for sort of wider base feet. Myself, I am flat-footed, so the antics have actually been a lot more comfortable for me. So if you're going to be buying new, especially, try your best to get somewhere to try some on, just so you can get a feel for it. It's worth looking out for any events where one of the stores will be there, because there's a good chance they'll have some of the skates on hand. And also just ask any of the members as well if they've got skates on that you might be interested in. See if someone's got the same size as you are, so you can just try them on, see how they are. That's probably the best advice. Okay, moving on. So plates. I'm not going to go into too much depth here, because there's a lot of personal preference to do with plates. Um, Shore grip rock plates. I've just been looking online, and these seem to be a really good option for entry level. The main thing we recommend for plates, especially if you're trying to look for specific parts or secondhand parts, is just try and make sure you get a metal plate. There is other materials they can get made out of, like carbon fiber, and nylon is a very, very common one. What we've tended to find is that they just don't go the distance, whereas something made out of metal usually lasts a lot longer and is a lot better. But shore grip rock plates, these are around 50 to £60. They're full metal, so they're a pretty good entry level model. Then you've got Avenger plates, which are like the OG roller derby plate. Like, most people that have been doing it more than sort of 5 years have probably had some Avenger plates at some point in their history. But they're really, really good. They'll go the distance. They'll do your whole career if you want. And the variant M, they're very, very good as well. Again, sort of not necessarily entry. I'd say they're mid level, same as Avengers. Made out of really good materials. Rollline are also a very, very trustworthy company. They've been doing roller skating gear for absolutely donkeys. So they're very, very good. Very, very good brand to buy from. Probably, I would personally say they're one of the most trustworthy plate brands to go for, because you just never hear anybody complaining about them. The only thing to note with Rollline is, because out of most of the brands here, they're one of the only European based companies. They're also the only one that really uses metric measurements to do their skates and stuff with, which might sound weird, but basically you need to just double check with the wheelbases that you're putting bearings on, is just make sure what what size it is. Just Rollline can be a little bit tricky because they do two types of bearing types, whereas all the other brands, they they just do 8 mil, and they just all do the same. All of these ones, they're all the same. You can't go wrong. Rollline do have 7 and 8 mil little axles for their wheels, so that's just something to watch out for. So these ones are sort of between 100 to 150 for these ones. And then coming down here, these are your primo brand ones. These are like, these are your top end ones, like those boots we were just showing. Very, very popular ones. Pilot F16s. A lot of people get these ones. They're around 200, 250. These ones, the Rollline Killer plates, they're close to 300. And Paradigm Iris, however you want to say that. They're very expensive. they're like 400 or something like that. What do these have an advantage? Better materials, much closer tolerances. They're just built to last, in all honesty, and they are just made with better understanding of how you use your edges and things. They're just much lighter construction as well. So you'll notice the way that they're all designed. They're designed in such ways that they've got cutouts and things, so they're just not as heavy, generally speaking. So they're more robust, lighter, and just made of better materials. But again, don't consider the price of these that's going to make you put you off any gear. These are literally like, end game. Don't worry about them right now. I'm just wanting to go through and give you a realistic picture of what you're getting into. The next one. Now, this one will vary based on who you ask. So, bearings. There are a lot of people that'll be quite happy with just generic ones you get from eBay. Get them for like £6 or whatever. But the main ones that you're wanting to look at are, I'm just going to add a little bit of extra note here. Let's add a sticky. So the ones you're mainly looking for, unless you go for a weird roll line one, is always 8mm. 8mm. Okay. Generic ones, they're not going to do you any bad. You're going to be absolutely fine with them. You're going to be able to roll all of that kind of thing. They're not going to stunt your growth or anything like that. So, yeah, they're absolutely fine. My recommendation, though, usually is to get Bones Reds. I've got a lot of brand loyalty to these guys because I've been using them since I was like 13. I used to skateboard, and my skateboard from when I was 13 still has some Bones Reds, the first ones I put in it, and they still turn very, very fast. They're around £36 for a full set for skates. Main advantage, I would say, is it's not the initial roll, it's how long you can continue rolling from your initial effort. If anyone asks me in session and stuff, I can show you exactly what I mean. But if I get full speed on a stride, I can do 2 laps of the track coasting, just because of how these bearings just are able to maintain my momentum. Whereas some of your more generic ones, you're not going to be able to coast for as long. So, like I say, they're not going to prevent you from roller skating or anything like that. It's just they don't spin for as long or as fast, I would say. And the only other call out here is just, as I said before, with roll line, they do 7mm bearings. So if you do happen to go down the roll line camp, just check the plate, because you may need 7mm bearings. But all the wheels are generally okay. Okay, now the fun one. Talking about wheels. Now, I've just got some brands I've just pulled in here. So you've got Rollline, Radar, Sonar, Shore Grip, Roller Bones. They're all reputable brands. It's to be honest, with wheels, it doesn't really matter too much around brands as much as it does around durometer. So I'm just going to add that and call it Juro there. We're going to go back into there. So the only thing to note with types of wheels is the hub. There is some differences there, so you'll notice most of them are made of like a plastic. They're quite flexible. When you're stepping on them, they've got quite a bit of shock absorption. There is metal hubbed ones. These generally do run you a lot more money, usually double the price of the plastic hubbed counterparts. But these ones are generally very good for speed. They're very consistent. They don't flex as much. So generally speaking, the shock absorption's a lot worse, but the speed's a lot better. But that's the only thing to really note about the different types of wheels. There is different thicknesses and heights and all of that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't get too bogged down in all of that. If you go on a roller skating website, just look for the Joros. Just focus mostly on the Joros, I would say. So when we're talking about Joros, it's basically a number that's associated on the actual wheel. Now, you can find wheels at all sorts of ranges, from like 74A to up to 100A. Now, the ideal range that we'd recommend for roller skating inside, in sports halls and stuff, is between 88A to 95A. So as long as you've got a set of wheels that are sort of between that range, you're generally in the good. You're in the good range, and what then you've just got to sort of figure out is what your preference is, because what these numbers mean are basically how hard or how dense the material is on the wheel. So the lower the number is, the softer it is. So this can work in lots of different ways and have lots of different factors to consider. But basically, what you'll tend to find is body weight loading. Sort of the more weight that's on the wheels, the grippier they will generally be. So someone who weighs 8 stone may find that 88As are slippy, whereas somebody who's 16 stone, double their weight, might find that 88As are very, very grippy, and that's just basically based on the weight. But in terms of grip, so if you're wanting more grip, you go lower number. 88A is the lowest we usually recommend. If you're wanting to go for more slip, if you feel like your wheels are too grippy, you want to go to the higher range, 95A. There is a happy medium around 92A that a lot of people skate on. The Hall at Flint, although it does sometimes differ day to day, generally speaking, it's on the more slick. It's on the more grippier side. It can get slick when it's a bit dirty, but it's generally a bit more grippy compared to some other sports halls we've experienced, like Liso in the Wirral. That's extremely slippy. There, the floor in Glyndor Sports Hall, that's quite slippy as well, where you may need grippier wheels just to be able to not slide around everywhere. But the ideal thing that you're looking for here is you want to find your ideal grip that feels comfortable for you doing the maneuvers that we're asking you to do. You, because of things like plow stops, you don't want too much grip, because if there's too much grip, trying to do a plow stop is incredibly difficult. So you usually want something a little bit harder to help you slide just that little tiny bit. The other things to take into note is the speed. So generally speaking, the harder the wheel is, if it's indoors, the faster you're able to go, because there's not as much flex on the wheel. So you're able to transfer the power a lot better. Alternatively, because you've got better grip on softer wheels, it can be easier to go around corners faster with grip, because you're not sliding. And then there's a little bit of shock absorption. This one mostly applies for when you're wanting to go outdoors. So you want softer wheels for when you go outdoors, because of this shock absorption. Because generally speaking, outdoors is a lot rougher terrain to sort of skate on, so you get a lot more sort of vibration and stuff. So if you're going outdoors, you want sort of 74 to 78A wheels. They're generally ideal for going outdoors in, because they've got really, really good shock absorption, and you don't tend to fall over as many stones and stuff. Okay, so that may have opened a little minefield in terms of what wheels do I need to get. Don't panic about it too much. The good thing is all skates, generally speaking, all fit each other's wheels. So if you're not sure what kind of wheels you want, what Duro might be good for you, ask around the team. Try and find out if somebody's got a specific Duro that you're wanting to try out to see if it's good for you or not. I wouldn't worry about it too much very early days, but once you're starting to get really into it, and you know, you're really trying to do skills at a sort of higher level and much more consistently, generally speaking, you want to be able to get a wheel that helps you perform the best you can. I would probably say after knee pads and a decent helmet, getting the right wheels on your skates is probably the next most important upgrade for anybody getting started. Any more questions, just feel free to ask on that one, because wheels is definitely a difficult subject. Okay, toe stops. Now, it's not when you're getting started, it doesn't really matter too much about what kind of toe stop you have. However, when we start moving on, we do really strongly advise moving away from these fixed toe stops. Main reason why is you can't adjust the height on them. So with roller derby, there's a lot of things that we tend to do on toe stops. It's kind of like half the movement for some of the positions in the game. And not being able to adjust the height of this means that you have to learn to use your toe stops at that very fixed height. And more often than not, these are set in such a way that you have to be quite high up um, on the toe stop, which is not comfortable for everyone, especially if you're not used to wearing like high heels or anything like that. So what we usually recommend is making sure that you've got toe stops that have got an adjustable height. So you're able to spin them in. They've usually got a securing nut to help them stay in place. But it allows you to sort of find the height that you feel the most comfortable in going onto your toe stops. In terms of toe stop types, there are two main types that you'll generally see if you're wanting to buy new ones. You sort of get these rounded edge ones. These ones are really good for sort of being a bit bouncy on your toe stops. Not too much of it makes contact, and they've got quite a lot of flex, so they can feel quite bouncy. So really good if you're like running or you're wanting to bounce around, spinning and all that kind of stuff. And then probably the more popular one you tend to see most of the time is these sort of flat-faced ones. These just give you a big footprint. These are very good for using for actual stopping and giving you a really stable toe stop footprint to maneuver on. So these are a lot more popular, and generally a lot of people use these because of the braking properties, but also that much bigger footprint for when you're on them if you're wanting to do maneuvers on your toe stops. There is also stem length that you'll find if you're buying these. To be honest, it very much depends on what your preferred height is. If you're not sure what your preferred height is, just go long stem, because you can usually adjust it enough so it can go most of the way into the skate anyway. So you'll be able to find your happy level. So just go long stem if you've got that option in your shopping. In terms of brands, so I've listed some of them here. The ones you'll generally see: Rydell, Powerdyne, Roline, Bionic, and Gumball. There are some other ones around, but these are the ones you usually see for the most part. Okay, coming to the last bit then. So these are just additional sort of accessories that you can get, which are helpful. I'm only going to go through these very quickly, just to go through their sort of advantages. So as we said before about the knee pads, you want to make sure that they're not sliding around. Now, in some cases, maybe because of the shape of your legs or something, you may find that even though the knee pads do fit quite snugly, they're quite comfortable and stuff, they do still slide around. Knee gaskets are a very, very good option to help secure them a little bit more without making them too tight. The added advantage as well with knee gaskets is they add that extra layer of padding as well. So if you've got some of the more entry level knee pads and you just wanted a quick fix to add a bit more padding, you can add knee gaskets to do that for you. I know some people mentioned in the chat about padded shorts. So these are just one example that you can get. You can get different padded shorts that'll protect your hips and protect your coccyx. They're generally well received by most people that end up getting them. Whether you find them they're necessary or not, mileage may vary. Might seem like a strange one and more of a aesthetic choice, but getting decent laces can actually make quite a nice difference. So I'd always advise getting waxed laces if you can. There are really cheap ones you can get on eBay, but you can look around. There's different styles and all sorts, but as long as they're waxed. The main reason for this is because wax laces, when you've got them in the boot, they don't generally move around themselves when you're putting your boots on and off. So for the most part, down sort of the tongue of the boot towards your toes, that usually stays very consistent. And with skates, because there's a lot of different ways of lacing your skates up as well to help relieve pressure in different areas, if that's like tight around your arch and all that kind of stuff. If you're having to tie your laces in a very particular way, wax laces helps keep that really consistent between sessions. So you're not having to always like keep micro adjusting each session. I would highly recommend getting some wax laces if you're struggling with like tightness in certain areas on your feet. Toe guards, these are very much an optional thing as well, especially if you've just bought some brand new skates and you wanted to make sure you don't scuff the toe box of them. Because generally speaking, that is something that happens, especially with us doing all of the stuff like knee slides and all that kind of stuff. You tend to scuff the toe on a lot of boots, so people do generally buy these sort of leather protectors to put over the edge of them just to protect them and make them last a little bit longer. To be honest, the cheaper option is just buy some hockey tape. You can buy hockey tape for about £3. You get them in lots of different styles, get them on eBay, and all you do is just cover the toe with a bunch of hockey tape, and then when you come to remove it, the boot will still be in good nick, and you can just replace it. So if you start wearing through the hockey tape, you can just rip it off, put a new layer of hockey tape on, and also you can share with your friends. But it also looks a bit more subtle as well, because these can get in the way of tightening toe stops and things, just because they're on the edge of the boot and they're quite loose. Whereas this is just securely against against your boot. And to be fair, if you wanted to, you can also cover other areas of the skate if you're finding that you might be causing wear on the side or something like that. So I advise doing hockey tape. And that's it. I've just blathered on for, wow, 52 minutes. Lucky you. So this will be available on YouTube. Yeah, I'll put all of the links in the description for anything that's hit for the websites that I mentioned. If you've got any other questions, just feel free to reach out. Thanks very much.